Welcome back to Therapy Meets Soul, a Live Empowered podcast with Dr. Dena. And I'm Dr. Dena, a clinical psychologist and the founder of Live Empowered. Before we jump in today's episode, I want to do a quick check-in and say thank you. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in on this very exciting launch. And if you haven't tuned in yet, you really missed out on a lot and you need to go back to the first 3 episodes. As you can see in the previous episodes, there's something here for everybody. At first, it may seem like, oh, this is just for men, or oh, this is just for women. But in each episode, if you keep listening, you'll start to see that there's value and gold nuggets there for men and women and everyone in between. So this is incredibly exciting for me, and I hope that you guys are enjoying this as much as I am, and let's continue to heal and grow together. Today, we're going to dive into something that has been misunderstood for decades. We have all heard it. Men, they need to be more vulnerable. They need to open up. They need to talk about their feelings more. Well, there's a reason why this seems to be a pattern. These are not just isolated incidences or coincidences. And today, we're going to really deep dive this and figure this out. I think people think that men are bad at vulnerability, but what if that's not the problem? What if men are not bad at being vulnerable or bad at being emotional, but rather they fear what comes after that vulnerability, whether men know it or not? What if the issue is not emotional incapacity, but rather emotional punishment? Because here's what I see as a psychologist. Little boys are not born emotionally shut down. They cry, they express fear, they seek comfort, they seek approval, they seek safety, no different than little girls. And then something happens. The world starts to teach them which emotions are acceptable and which emotions make people feel uncomfortable. And then little boys walk away with one devastating lesson. The moment I express pain, I lose love, I lose safety, I lose respect, and I lose approval. Today, we're talking about how that happens, what it costs men, what it costs women, and how we can begin to heal from this. Let's begin. One of the biggest myths in our culture are that women are emotional and men are not. And that simply is not true. I'm here to tell you that men have the exact same emotional range as women do. This is not a biology problem. This is a conditioning problem. Imagine a 5-year-old boy. He falls, he cries, he's hurt, he's scared, he's reaching out for comfort, and then something happens. He starts to hear someone say, "You're fine, get up. Boys don't cry, you're not hurt, don't be a baby, man up." Now imagine that interaction replayed hundreds of times throughout that boy's life. What do you think happens? Last week, I was doom scrolling on TikTok because I do that just like everybody else does from time to time. And I saw this video that gave me mixed emotions. It was a literal emotional roller coaster that I was going through. And I'm going to tell you about the video. And maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. And I just want to put this out there that the purpose of me telling you about this video is not because I'm trying to parent shame anybody. I'm a parent too, and I've made lots of mistakes, most certainly. My sharing of this video is just to highlight what we're talking about today. That's it. No more, no less. So I was watching this video and there was a dad and his son. The dad was boxing, and in the background, the son was walking around playing. The son was probably about 2 years old. And the son falls down, and I can't remember if he hurt his chin or he hurt his head, but nonetheless, he fell down and he immediately started crying. And the dad continued to box. He heard his son crying and he addressed the issue verbally. He told his son, "Get up, son, don't cry." And again, please don't quote me. This is going off of my memory, which is not that reliable. But essentially, the gist of the video was the dad continued to box. He told the son, "Get up, don't cry, hold your head up, you're fine," those types of things. And so the son gets up and he's still crying and he's reaching his arms out to his dad, and the dad continues to box. But then there was a moment where the son started to emotionally regulate himself and his crying became a little bit less intense. And then at that moment, the dad stopped boxing and he stooped all the way down to his son's level and was eye to eye. Now, before I continue with the example, I just want to tell you the beautiful things that this dad did. Allowing your son to have an opportunity to self-soothe and emotionally regulate is a wonderful thing. A wonderful thing. And waiting for a sign that your son has exhibited some sort of emotional regulation and then bending all the way down to his eye level is magical. Like A plus parenting. We love that. And so the dad bends down and he's talking to his son. And it was at this moment that he gave his son a hug and he told his son, "You're fine. You're fine. See, we don't need to cry." I think it was something along those lines, right? So the emotional roller coaster that I went through was in the beginning of the video, I was like, oh, the son is just seeking innately biologically comfort and expressing his hurt, expressing his vulnerability, and he's not getting his needs met in that moment, right? But then later on in the video, he does. The dad bends down, hugs him, and all of those things. I think the part that I wasn't necessarily a fan of on a psychological level is what I had just mentioned earlier about the voices of, "You're fine, get up, we don't cry, you don't need to cry, hold your head up." Those are things that are very, very, very common in our culture, in our society for young boys, and even some girls too. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but right now we're focusing on men and boys, and that's something that's incredibly common. And as I said earlier, is on repeat hundreds and hundreds of times throughout that childhood. That's called conditioning. This is why this is not a biology problem that men are incapable on a biological level of expressing emotions and vulnerability. They are born to do that, just like little girls. They are just conditioned that it's not okay and that it's not appropriate and that is not the way that they're going to get their needs met. So, what does that child learn? He doesn't learn that emotions disappear because they don't disappear. The feeling is still there. What he learns is that his emotions are dangerous. So again, the feeling remains, it's the expression of that emotion that disappears. And those are two very different things. As a psychologist, I know that emotions don't just vanish, they find a different exit, sometimes through work, sometimes through anger, sometimes through addiction, sometimes through irritability, sometimes through isolation, and sometimes even through physical illness. The emotion always comes out somewhere. Now let's talk about something uncomfortable, the emotional double standard. We often tell men and ask of men, be vulnerable. We want you to be vulnerable. But do we consistently reward it when we do, in fact, receive it? Well, a man who reaches his breaking point may finally say, "Hey, I'm struggling. I'm scared. I'm feeling inadequate. I just don't know if I can do this anymore." And sometimes the response is compassion, and sometimes it's discomfort or judgment or withdrawal or mockery or loss of attraction, or even worse, weaponizing what was just shared with us. Many men have stories where they have shared something emotional or something vulnerable and immediately regretted it. Not because being vulnerable or the sharing was harmful, but rather what came after hurt them deeply. And this right there is what causes such a strong psychological association. I'm going to give you an example. Most people are familiar with Pavlov's dogs. In short, essentially, Pavlov trained his dogs to become hungry at the sound of a bell. After many, many, many repetitions and many baby steps, right? It created this association that whenever the dog heard the bell, they would start to be hungry. Similarly, this is what has been happening to men starting out from little boys. It's that repeated conditioning that causes the psychological association that emotions and vulnerability is dangerous. And the brain recognizes dangerous, and that's where that association lives. In previous episodes, I spoke about the nervous system and how the nervous system activates when there is danger or a perceived threat. And this is quite literally what is happening to men when they share something vulnerable or they even begin to think about sharing something vulnerable. Their nervous system gets activated for fear of what will happen next. Like I said earlier, is it going to cause the recipient to feel discomfort? Is there going to be mockery? Are they going to think I'm less attractive? Are they going to think I'm less of a man? Are they going to use this against me or weaponize this in the future? And for all of those reasons, men choose to withdraw and to not share their emotions. Those walls go right back up, not because they don't care, but because they're fearful of what follows after they are emotional or vulnerable. And this is how they learn to protect themselves. And when you really wrap your head around that, that's incredibly sad that men have learned that they have to protect themselves when they're experiencing some sort of vulnerability. Here's the tragedy: men start to build an emotional armor, so to speak. The man who never cries never learns how to process grief. The man who never talks about fear becomes incredibly anxious. The man who never admits weakness may suffer alone. The man who never asks for help may suffer under the weight of trying to carry everything himself. And here's the flip side to that: the people who love him may often feel disconnected. A man's partner might say, "I never know what you're feeling." A man's children might say, "Daddy never talks about his feelings. Dad never talks about his emotions." His friends only end up knowing the surface level version of him because this armor that he wears that protects him doesn't just protect him from his vulnerability, it protects him from his authenticity. And that is a tragedy. The armor protects, but it also isolates. And in my line of work, isolation is one of the greatest predictors of emotional suffering. Whether you choose to believe it or not, as humans, we are wired for connection. We're simply wired for that. It's an innate biological need to build connections. But connection requires authenticity, and authenticity requires vulnerability. Think about that through the lens of a man. Okay, women, if you've been listening all this time and you've been thinking, wow, this episode is not for me, you would definitely be wrong, because here is where I'm going to speak exactly and precisely to you. So, if you've ever wished that your man would open up more, I would invite you to ask yourself, what have you done? In the instances where your man has opened up with you, how have you received that? Do you become uncomfortable? Do you rush to try to fix it? Do you withdraw? Do you judge it? Do you minimize it? Do you store it in the arsenal to use for later? Please don't do that. Or do you create safety? Because vulnerability grows where safety exists. So this is what women need to think about when they are wondering why their man is not expressing emotions, not allowing himself to be vulnerable. I am inviting you again to think about what you have done in the few instances that this has happened. And I'm encouraging you to create a safe space if you have not already. Because again, vulnerability grows where safety exists and not where pressure exists. Honestly, the goal is not to force men to talk, but rather the goal is to create safe enough spaces for them to feel like it would be okay if they did. Many men don't need more encouragement, but rather what they need is more evidence that There is a space that allows them to be vulnerable that will not be punishing for them. They simply need more evidence that their honesty will not be punished, will not be mocked, will not be weaponized, will not be uncomfortable. And now to my men listening. The fact that vulnerability was punished repeatedly throughout your life does not mean that it is a weakness. This is one of the things that I try to debunk every day with my male clients is that vulnerability, despite what culture tells us, social media tells us, is not a weakness. It, in fact, is the opposite. It is such a strength. The evolution that you experience as a person, your soul, the quality of your relationships that become enhanced, that all lives in the space of vulnerability. And if you've grown up to believe that vulnerability and emotions are a weakness, you're not even coming close to tapping into the beauty that is not only within you, but around you. You're not even coming close to being authentic, even within yourself. And therefore, people around you, people that you love, people that love you, are also not getting to experience the authentic version of you, which, by the way, is fucking beautiful. Beautiful, but scared. Beautiful, but hiding. And that's what I really want to debunk in this episode is that, I mean, honestly, whether you're a man or a woman and you're fearful to be vulnerable, please, let's begin the rewiring. Please, let's decondition what has been taught to us because the outcome, the consequence of that has been so tragic. Vulnerability being punished just means that someone or people were teaching you the wrong lesson. Strength is not emotional suppression. Strength is emotional capacity. Strength is being able to sit with your fear and not running away from it. Strength is being able to say, I'm hurting. I need help. I need support. I don't have all the answers. Strength is self-awareness. Strength is courage. And frankly, vulnerability is one of the purest and strongest forms of courage. Because courage isn't acting when you're fearless. Courage is acting despite the fear. Don't we see that in all the movies and the shows that we watch? These courageous characters, they're not courageous because they're lacking fear and they're just going into a scene fearless. No, there's fear there. There's adrenaline in there, but nonetheless, they move forward. That's strength. And that is emotional vulnerability. So please remember this. Every time you tell the truth about how you're feeling and what you're experiencing emotionally, you are practicing courage. And as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this. Men do not fear vulnerability. They fear what happens after they are vulnerable. And healing can only begin once you understand the difference. Healing cannot begin if we continue to carry this idea that men by nature are not emotional. Again, that is simply not true. Men have the same emotional range and the same emotional capacity as women do. This is just a consequence of years and years of conditioning. And if we stay believing that principle that men are incapable of emotions, incapable of vulnerability, then there's no space for healing to even begin. We need to stop asking what's wrong with men and start asking what happened to them. And that question changes everything because healing doesn't happen through blame, it happens through understanding. It happens through compassion, it happens through curiosity, and it happens through patience. It happens through creating spaces where people no longer have to choose between authenticity and acceptance. Whether you're a man who has learned how to hide their feelings, or you're someone who loves a man who struggles expressing them, remember this. The goal is not to become less strong. The goal is to redefine strength, period. Because honestly, The strongest people that I know are not the ones who never allow themselves to feel, but rather are the ones who are brave enough to allow themselves to be seen. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Therapy Meets Soul. And if this resonated with you or anyone you know, please don't hesitate to share it with them. And please share it with all the men out there, because we all need to band together, work together to redefine this emotional incapacity that's actually not the problem. So until next time, take care of your mind, honor your body, and stay connected to your soul. Bye.